Okay, this is Orlando Wilson, and what I want to talk about in this video is surveillance/counter surveillance and its importance within the close protection business, and also what you need to cover if you're looking to get trained for surveillance, counter surveillance. A few considerations. Now, somebody approached me recently and they showed me a certificate they had saying they were covert surveillance trained. And when I started asking them about what they'd done, they didn't know too much, even though they'd done apparently an accredited 2-week course out of the United Kingdom. They were lacking a lot. A very nice person, don't get me wrong, and they were keen. I think they just fell victim to a lot of these accredited courses coming out of UK, which are nothing more than bits of paper for guys and girls getting out of the military or unemployed people looking to get back into work. If you're unemployed in UK for a certain amount of time, they'll give you these courses. The standard is generally low because they want people to pass the courses and get the certificates, because that way the training companies and everybody else makes money. Anyway, back on topic. Why do you need to know about surveillance, counter surveillance? Well, before the bad guys do anything, they're going to be putting you under surveillance. So you need to be able to spot that surveillance. The best way to spot surveillance is to learn how to do surveillance. And you need to the best way to learn how to defend is to learn how to attack. So you need to understand how the bad guys, criminals, etc. will be getting information on you, intelligence on you, which is generally going to be by putting you under surveillance one way or the other. You need to understand all the different aspects. If you're looking to do training courses as far as surveillance is concerned, then they should cover, at least touch on the topics I'm going to talk about now. The issue is with a lot of training courses, they're not going to have the time to actually cover the content that you need to cover. So this is where, think about it from, again, your personal training perspective. You do a course, your course notes, you want to highlight what you need to further read up on. And again, this is a business where you're constantly learning. I'm constantly learning on a daily basis. I get up in the morning, I'm reading what people have sent me, I'm reading the news, I'm checking different trends, etc. So I'm constantly learning. And again, this business, you are a constant student. You are never an expert. The time you think you're an expert is the time to leave. So you need to understand surveillance, counter surveillance, and it's double-sided. To be able to do proper counter surveillance, you need to understand how to do surveillance. You have to put yourself in the position of the person watching you, following you. You need to think, okay, if I was a bad guy, how would I watch me? How would I follow me? How would I get information on me, my client, etc.? That's the starting point. Yeah. Let me check my notes here. So again, it's double-sided. So what do you need to cover on a surveillance course if you're doing a surveillance course? What should be covered? And if you're not covering it on a surveillance course, what do you need to learn individually? Foot and vehicle surveillance. You need to learn how to follow people. And again, you need to learn how to follow people in teams and also individually. Why individually? A lot of times, if you're doing commercial surveillance, the clients are not going to pay for a whole surveillance team. They'll pay for one person to go and do a job. And I've come across somebody recently, they'd never been taught individual drills for foot surveillance. Again, vehicle surveillance as well. You need to understand how to work in a team. I'd say at least 2 cars. And again, also how to work as an individual. And there's various vehicle tactics, drop-offs, pickups, etc., which you need to understand. Location surveillance. You need to understand how to put various locations under surveillance, be it a rural location, be it an urban location. And again, there's various tactics, various strategies what you would employ that differ if you're going to be putting somewhere in a rural environment under surveillance and somewhere in an urban environment under surveillance. So again, you need to cover that. Also, from a defensive perspective, you need to understand if you're looking to providing residential security, office security, etc., where are the likely surveillance positions on that office, the routes in, the routes out, etc. So again, it's double-sided. Observation posts. You need to understand how to do, I call them OPs, I'm old-fashioned. You need to understand how to do observation posts, static surveillance, urban and rural, short-term, and these days long-term. You're generally not going to be doing it long-term. There's no need. And the thing is, long-term observation posts in the civilians world, it's too much of a high risk of compromise. So again, you need to understand how to do static surveillance, rural and urban, and how not to get compromised. Ghillie suits. I will talk about ghillie suits in another video because they're too amusing. You need to understand what to do if you're compromised. You need to understand that if you're providing surveillance, that what to do if you're compromised, which is usually initially come up with a cover story, or work out how can I put it? Can't say too much here. You need to work out what to do if you're compromised. Compromise means if you're doing surveillance and you found out, especially in an area where you're dealing with potentially hostiles. This is what a lot of people don't understand as well. Doing surveillance can be dangerous. Why? Even matrimonial surveillance. And I had some idiot do a course to me in Florida, and he was doing matrimonial surveillance. And I was talking to him about some of the stuff, and he was very, very passive, very non-aggressive, very not too gung-ho. I said to him, you understand what you're doing is dangerous. You're out doing matrimonial surveillance. Oh, but nobody's going to hurt me. Nobody's going to whatever. You know what? If you're going to screw up somebody's marriage, if you're going to cost somebody a lot of money on alimony, if you're going to go out from the other side of things, if you're dealing corporate surveillance, you're going to go out and catch criminals, etc., etc. You know what? If people click onto the fact you're watching and following them and going to cause them problems, a lot of people will go out the way to fuck you up. I said to this guy in Florida, I said, okay, you're sat in your car. You know what? The person that you got under surveillance realizes what's going on. What are you going to do if they just walk up to your car with a Glock and empty the Glock into the car? South Florida. They open up and they bring their chopper from the trunk of their car and start spraying and praying. You know what? You got problems. So this is where, if you're doing a surveillance course, they should be covering personal security and what to do if you're compromised. And again, as I said, the surveillance business can be very dangerous, especially if you're going into the corporate world and you're going after counterfeiters, etc., etc., etc. Yeah, you're screwing with people. You're going to be costing a lot of people money. Listening devices. You need to cover listening devices. And I've had people say, oh, they're illegal in the area we're working. Yeah, they're illegal in most places, but the bad guys still use bugs. They still use listening devices. And again, even though it's illegal in your area now, okay, it's not illegal international. This is where this guy turned up with his covert surveillance certificate. I said, I talked to him about listening devices. He never had a clue. And I think his report, I think he spoke to one of his instructors, and, oh, but they're illegal in the United Kingdom. Okay, but they should mark on that certificate, and I think that certificate was mainly meant for insurance investigations in the United Kingdom, that surveillance course was not a covert surveillance course. Well, it was, but it was for UK insurance investigations. If you're in the business, if you're traveling internationally, some places listening devices are not illegal. So you need to understand how to use them and understand how they're going to be used against you. Cameras. You need to understand different types of cameras. And again, if you're doing a course where they've got you walking around with a handy cam, I'd seriously question how up to date that course was. I think I got rid of my last handy cam something like 2005, 2006, if I remember right. These days, there's plenty of other covert camera options. You don't need to walk around with handy cams. If you're in a restaurant filming under the table with a handy cam, people are just going to think you're a pervert. The police will be called on you. You're going to have problems. Tracking devices. And again, I've mentioned tracking devices, and people have said tracking devices are illegal, etc. You know what? Tracking devices are everywhere these days. I think I've done a video about tracking devices. The main one is getting a lot of publicity, the Apple AirTags. But again, you can get GPS trackers these days on Amazon, Alibaba, wherever, eBay. And again, a lot of them work off SIM cards. You can get trackers. You have to know how to use them, and you now have to know how to be aware of them. Everything's double-sided. And in some places, they're not illegal. They're not covered in the laws. So again, part of your planning and prep needs to be understanding the laws of the area you're going to deploy to. If you're working in UK, okay, it's a totalitarian nanny state, you can't really do much. But if you're working in the real world, there's places you can do serious things. Drones. You need to understand, if you're doing a surveillance course these days and they're not covering drones, you're not doing a surveillance course. Drones are very much part of surveillance these days. Extremely useful, and they're in a lot of places they're going to be the first option for surveillance. Again, people have popped up. Well, they're not legal in the area we work in. Do the criminals care? No, the criminals will use them. And again, you need to be aware of drone defense if you're in the close protection business. The criminals will use them, so you need to know how to use them. And again, in some places, they're not regulated, so you need to know how to use them. So drones these days, if you're seriously considering the close protection business, or you're in the close protection business, especially if you're in the investigation business, you need to understand how to use drones. If they're not legal in your area, okay, no problems, stay in your area. If you want to work internationally, you need to understand these things and the things I've spoken about in this video. Other things to touch on, I'm in a rural environment now. If I was putting this area under surveillance, would I be sat in a bush in a ghillie suit? No, my first option would be remote cameras. And again, if you look up trail cameras these days, there's lots of remote cameras out there that are very, very affordable, that you could hide in a bush, hide in a tree, and they're not going to be found. And again, from a defensive perspective, if you're supplying, if I had a client come into this area for a picnic, again, the advanced team would be tasked to scan the area and check for any remote cameras hidden in bushes. Again, you can easily Wi-Fi the camera, get a mobile hotspot. A lot of Wi-Fi capable cameras are out there these days. They're affordable. So get a small little camera, hook it up to a mobile hotspot, put it in a bush, put it in a tree. You know what? You could be anywhere in the world monitoring what's happening in whichever location. So again, if you want to get into surveillance, think about the topics I've mentioned here. And again, I've not spoken about if people are trying to watch you, follow you. If they have the capabilities, they're going to be going after your phones, your smartphones, etc. So that's another aspect you need to be aware of for surveillance, for tracking people, and also for counter surveillance, ensuring you're not being tracked, your clients not being tracked, followed, watched, etc. They don't have spyware on their phones. And spyware these days, I've spoke about it in another video on tracking devices. Spyware is easily available, and the bad guys employ it. Stalkers employ it. So again, a few things to think about on what you need to cover on a surveillance course, and the topics, if you're serious about surveillance, counter surveillance, you need to take into consideration. And I'm sure there's a few people, I'm sure I've missed a few things, and if I've missed a few things, feel free in the comments of this video to put mature comments, not stupid comments, about what I've missed. And as I said, with all the videos, I hope this gives you something to think about. In the meantime, follow me along on social media, because I have an array of videos up there already on various aspects of the close protection, investigation, kidnapping, ransom world, etc. And we've got more stuff going up. I have a load of books up on Amazon to do with various aspects of the close protection, security business, crime fiction, etc., etc. So, as I said, follow us along on social media. The main platforms we're using are Instagram, YouTube, and LinkedIn. So check us out there, and if you're connected with me, feel free to send me a message if you have any questions, any requests for videos, etc. I might take some time to get back to you. I tend to get back to people within a few days. So please be patient, and if you don't hear from me in a few days, send me another message asking me why I've not got back to you, and generally I'll reply then. I need a push sometimes. Okay, so in the meantime, as always, be good, stay safe, stay out of trouble, and I hope this video has given you a few things to think about.